For 27 years, no one could take this man's crown. Then, a room grows quiet, a position thickens, and the greatest champion in history slowly runs out of squares to breathe. The champion is Emanuel Lasker, 52, a mathematician who has held the crown longer than anyone ever will. Across the board sits Jose Raul Capablanca, 32, playing for the title in his own home city, Havana, 1921. The heat is unbearable. The queen's gambit declined, one of the oldest arguments in chess. Both men know these moves the way they know their own names. The center pawns lock horns, the knights come out to their squares, a bishop finds its diagonal. Nothing is decided, nothing is even threatened. This is the long, formal handshake before two of the finest minds who ever sat at a board begin to fight in earnest. Lasker develops calmly, brings out his bishop, and tucks his king away by castling. He has done this 1,000 times against 1,000 opponents, and walked away champion every single time. Capablanca answers with the same unhurried grace, bringing up his rooks, then leaning back in his chair and looking off across the salon, as though the outcome were already settled somewhere behind those calm, heavy-lidded eyes. The white queen steps to c2, the bishop repositions, and then the first captures ripple across the middle of the board. Lasker takes the pawn on c4, and Capablanca's bishop scoops it straight back. Even pieces, even material. To any eye in the room, this is a dead-level game between two equals, and the champion has the black pieces in a fortress he has defended his whole life. The dark bishops come off the board. Lasker recaptures with his rook and brings a knight back to f8, a patient defender planted right beside his king. It is careful, solid, textbook, the play of a man who has survived 1,000 endgames just like it. And yet, so quietly that no spectator could name the moment, something in the position has begun to tilt. The scales are level, and Capablanca is already leaning on them.
The position is level. I have played this 100 times, so why does the air feel heavier with every move he makes?
Now Capablanca begins the quiet, relentless work that made him the most feared technician alive. A rook slides to d1. The e-pawn steps up to e4, claiming the center as his own. There is no threat, no combination, nothing a beginner would even notice. He is not attacking. He is gathering, one small advantage at a time, the way water gathers, silently, behind a wall you did not know was there. The light bishop retreats all the way home to f1, not in fear, but to be reborn on a better road later. And then the queenside pawns begin to march. Capablanca pushes b4, and a whole region of the board quietly becomes his own. Lasker shuffles his rooks and his bishop back and forth, searching for a plan, for a lever, for a single square where he might do something active. He finds only more walls going up around him. The white queen swings out to b3, taking aim down the long diagonal that runs toward Lasker's king. The a-pawn joins the advance, rolling up to a4. Each move takes a little more territory, closes a little more space, and none of it can be answered with anything but retreat. The champion is being pushed backward on his own board, one polite, deadly move at a time. The a-pawn drives onto a5, a spike hammered deep into the queenside, fixing Lasker's pawns in place. Then Capablanca pushes a5, and the clamp snaps closed across the entire width of the board. Now the champion's pieces are herded back toward their own king, cramped against each other, shoulder to shoulder, with almost nowhere useful left to stand. What is left to Lasker is a sliver of his own board, and it is still shrinking. The white knight leaps into the heart of the board at e4, aimed like a spear point at Lasker's crowded ranks. For one moment, Capablanca lets an inaccuracy slip, his queen drifting to c3, and the champion is handed a breath of room. This is the moment a younger, hungrier Lasker might have seized. But there is nothing to seize it with. Every one of his pieces is tangled behind the others, and the chance passes by like weather. The white knight plunges forward to d6, deep in Lasker's camp, an intruder planted right on his throat. The champion kicks his knight at the white queen and strikes at the pawn wall, prizing for a sliver of air. Capablanca is in no hurry at all. He lets the tension coil tighter, patient as the tropical afternoon, letting the position ripen until it is ready to fall on its own. Then the pieces begin to come off in a wave. The knight takes the bishop on e8, the black queen takes back, and the pawns trade in the center of the board. This is the cruelty of Capablanca's method. Each exchange looks like a simplification, a relief, a step toward a draw. In truth, everyone strips another shield from the champion and lays bare the skeleton of an endgame he cannot possibly hold. Capablanca pushes b5 and lets one more small inaccuracy slip, the kind that would matter against anyone with counterplay. Against this position, it matters not at all. The c-file cracks open like a seam, the pawns fall away, and the rooks come sliding down the newly cleared lane, hunting one another in the open. The board is emptying out, and the emptier it gets, the more hopeless the champion's task becomes. The rooks swap off on c6, the last queenside pawns swap on b6, and the board grows thinner and thinner and thinner. What is left is almost symmetrical. Queen for queen, rook for rook, piece for piece. A position a club player would happily call a draw. And still, somehow, invisibly, It is the greatest defender in history who is the one quietly drowning.
I have traded away everything, and I am no freer than before. The cigar burns down between my fingers. There's nothing here to hold on to.
And now the slowest, cruelest phase of the whole game. Nothing happens. The rook lifts to e1. The black queen drifts along her back rank. The white knight drops back to d2, hunting a better perch. Move after move after move, the position simply refuses to give the champion a single open door. This is the part no highlight reel ever shows, and it is where the game is truly won, in the long, airless silence. The white knight returns to e4, that same commanding square in the middle of everything. The black queen retreats all the way to her starting square. The h-pawn steps forward on the king side, gaining a whisper more space. Lasker probes for counterplay again and again and again, testing every edge of the position. And every time, the position answers him with the same flat, patient silence. The white queen slides to b3, the rook lifts and shifts along the rank, the pawns edge out one careful square at a time. It is agony in slow motion. Picture the man in the black seat. A champion of 27 years, 52 years old, sweating through a heavy wool suit built for Berlin winters, drawing hard on a cigar as the Havana heat presses down, hunting across the board for a single chance that is never, ever going to arrive. The light bishop returns to c4, staring straight down the diagonal at the champion's king. And here, after 36 patient, tense moves, Lasker makes the first real slip of the entire game. His rook wanders out to a5, off to the edge of the board, away from the fight when its true home was d7, guarding the doors into his camp. A tiny thing. A rook one file too far. But against Capablanca, tiny things are all it takes. The rook had a home. Drop it back to d7, closer to the king, and the defense holds together for a long while yet. The suffering would go on, but the game would not be lost. The knights collide on c3 and come off the board, and Capablanca's queen sweeps in to recapture. The board is stripped bare now. Queens, rooks, a lone bishop against a lone knight, and a black king who cannot find shelter anywhere. Lasker walks that king out toward the center, to f7, still hunting a breath of air, still refusing to sit and be strangled. It is the defiance of a great fighter. It changes nothing. The white queen slides to e3, then the champion's queen drifts to d6, and the rook creeps up the a-file. Two more small inaccuracies, and the slope steepens under Lasker's feet. He can feel the position leaving him. Then Capablanca turns the key. His queen lands on b7 with check, reaching all the way across the board to the exposed king. The trap he has been building all game is finally shut. And the champion steps the wrong way. His king walks out to g6, into the open, out from under any cover, standing there beneath the bare sky in the middle of the board. A single quiet step back to g8 would have kept him safe behind his own pawns. Instead, he goes forward, and that door, the safe one, has just swung shut behind him for good.
My king is in the open air, and I put him there. I meant to find room. I have only found the edge of the cliff.
The white queen swings back to c8, deep in the corner, and the rook slides to c1 to join the hunt along the open file. Two heavy pieces closing in on an exposed king. Lasker's queen lunges out to b4, still clawing, still reaching for something, anything, that even resembles a counterattack. But a lunge is not a threat, and Capablanca does not so much as blink. Then comes the move that ends everything. Lasker's queen retreats to e7, reaching for shelter, for a quiet square beside her king. But e7 sits on the 7th rank, and the white rook needs only one move, up to c7, to stare straight across at her. In looking for safety, the champion has stepped his queen directly into the line of fire. It is the blunder that finally, cleanly, breaks the game in two. The rook could have slipped back to a7 instead, standing guard over the 7th rank, covering the square where the white rook wants to land. The position stays miserable and lost in the long run, but the champion would still be standing, still fighting.
The instant my hand leaves the queen, I see it. Too late. Across the board, he does not even lean forward. He already knew.
The bishop checks from d3, and the king is driven up to h6, further into the open, further from any help. There is no wall left to hide behind. The white rook crashes down onto c7, hard against the champion's queen, forcing her back onto the defense of her own king. Lasker fires off one last spite check from a1, a snarl thrown across the board with no teeth behind it. And Capablanca, unmoved, simply steps his king aside to g2 and lets the check die against the empty air. The champion's queen crawls home to d6, trying to guard the pieces she cannot save. On the board now, mate is only a few moves away, and both men can see it. Capablanca's queen crashes down on f8, taking the knight with check. Take the queen back, and the rook on h7 delivers mate at once. Run to h5, and the checks close in for a forced mate 2 moves later. There is no third path. Here the champion stopped the clock and resigned. Jose Raul Capablanca defeats Emanuel Lasker, Havana, 1921. The longest reign in the history of chess ended not by a thunderbolt, but by the slow closing of a door. 27 years on the throne. He never saw the blow because there was no blow, only the air running out.